Elo for boxing. All right, y'all. I'm here to give my take on the CTEofimo Lopez fight versus Ortiz. Very late post-fight assessment, but here it is. So, and forget the background noise. I'm actually en route to work, so forgive me for that. Got any noisy tires on my vehicle. So anyway, when it comes to that particular fight, going in, my position was that Jamaine Ortiz would probably box a close fight that would look close enough to the fans that he should get a draw or probably a victory, and Ortiz would probably look lost in there. Lopez would look lost. That was my sentiment on the fight going in. Now, I know I didn't make a pre-fight video, but I talked about it on social media with, different outlets and things like that with others. And that was my sentiment going in. Watched the fight as objectively and unbiasedly as I possibly could. And I felt like my prediction or my assessment of what I thought the fight would be going in was spot on. And this was based on just things I've seen in Teofimo Lopez in the past. Teofimo Lopez is a fighter who has a hard time getting out of his own head in a fight unless it's just absolutely going his way. Now, I will say that I felt like Josh Taylor had some decent moments against Teofimo Lopez, but Lopez had the mental fortitude in that fight and the determination to overcome that and put on a very outstanding victory, very convincing victory over Josh Taylor. But as I always say, to me, a fighter, just like anything else, just like anyone else, they are what they are most of the time than what they are some of the time. And most of the time, what I see with Teofimo Lopez is a guy who has to have his way more so. He has to have his way to feel comfortable in a fight. If he's not having his way, he gets very uncomfortable. I saw that in the Lomachenko fight. When Teofimo was having his way, he looked like one of the best fighters in the world. But when he wasn't having his way, he looked like he couldn't wait for the clock to run out in that fight, because he was having to engage more. He was fine engaging when Lomachenko wasn't punching back, but when Lomachenko started turning up the heat on him and he had to punch back, it was an issue. So that's where my assessment comes from. Now back to the fight that we saw. Yes, Jamaine Ortiz was very defensive. He fought an outboxing style. He did a lot of movements to make Teofimo miss. He did a lot of things that a lot of fans call running. But ultimately, I felt like he was a ring general in there. If you ask anyone who watched the fight, whose fight was that in terms of the way the fight was fought? Was that a Teofimo Lopez fight, or was that a Jamaine Ortiz fight? I'd have to say that was a Jamaine Ortiz fight. Teofimo Lopez played into his hand. And I felt like more times throughout that fight, Jamaine Ortiz was having his way, and Teofimo Lopez was lost trying to figure out spots in which he could, take tempo from Ortiz, take the momentum, and win moments in the fight. More times than not, he was unsuccessful at that. No, there wasn't a lot of big shots landed for either guy. Do I feel like Ortiz could have done more to stake his case at being the victor? Absolutely. But I also feel the same way about Lopez. I feel like there was a lot more Lopez needed to do to make a case for him being the victor in the fight. After a fight, I felt like Lopez was defeated. He felt like he lost the fight. And then when he didn't lose the fight, he was overwhelmed with emotion. He was already emotional after the fight thinking he had lost the fight. In my opinion. I don't know what's in the man's head. I'm just telling you what I think based on what I saw. I feel like if those guys fought again 3 months from now and Ortiz employed the same strategy, we get the same fight. Lopez wouldn't do anything different to make a different fight. Look at the Sandor Martin fight. Teofimo Lopez got offended when the Sandor Martin fight was brought up during the post fight. I mean, he was visibly upset and angry that was brought up because he knows that Sandor Martin fight isn't a bright spot in his career. In my opinion, he lost that fight as well. You can go to a fight that Teofimo Lopez won wide on the scorecards in a Nakatani fight. And remember, coming out of that fight, Teofimo Lopez said something about not want to fight any other fighters like Nakatani again. He comes out of the Lopez fight basically saying the same thing. He don't want to fight fighters that are fighting that style, those type fighters again. Two different types of fighters, two different styles. One outcome was a victory that nobody really argued against for Teofimo Lopez. The other one, very debatable. A lot of people feel like Teofimo should have lost. And he comes out of both fights saying the same thing. He don't want to fight that type of style. If you're supposed to be one of the best in the business, a style shouldn't be too much for you to learn how to overcome, especially when you see it more than once. And I get it. These guys that have similar styles don't fight exactly the same. They're not the same fighter. But when you've been an Olympian, you've had a decorated amateur career, you've actually been fast-tracked by comparison to your peers in terms of you got to the big fights first and actually was victorious. You should be able to overcome those type of things. Teofimo Lopez says he wants to fight guys that are going to be there to be hit, guys that are going to come forward. Well, that's what George Kambosos gave him, and he lost that fight. And he lost that fight as a huge favorite. So, Teofimo Lopez needs to look at himself. It's not about his opposition. It's about what he can do to get better, what he needs to do to get better. If he wants to continue to progress in the sport. I think one of Teofimo's biggest issues is that Teofimo already thinks he's head and shoulders above the rest of the opposition, the rest of the competition, based on what he's accomplished early in his career. And I think that's worked against him since he accomplished what he did. And even the fact that he won't let go of the claim that he was undisputed at 135. And the fact that he fabricated being undisputed at 140 because he beat a former undisputed champion. That says a lot about Teofimo Lopez. And I'm going to leave it at that. D-Lo 404 Boxing, I'm out. Peace.